Hey Thrivers, today we are chatting wellness with mom, business owner, and author Shannon Jamail. Shannon is the owner of Mind Body Complete, a wellness practice offering coaching and destination retreats for women of all ages. She's also a published author, and we cannot wait to ask her about the writing process while juggling her 4 kids. If you're guilty of comparison or negative self-talk, and face it, we all are, Shannon is an amazing mindset coach, and she's here with us today to share how to eliminate those negative beliefs and live a more joyful, present, and abundant life.
Welcome to The Thrive, a podcast for working moms. This is for all the women and moms listening. If you work from home, in an office, run your own business, or are the CEO of your family, this podcast is for you. Because at the end of the day, all moms are working moms. Rachel and Christine invite you to celebrate the victories, get advice, listen to their mom fails, and to know you aren't alone, to thrive in your everyday life.
Hi everybody, this is Rachel
and Christine.
We are so excited to have with us a guest from sunny California. Her name is Shannon Jamail, and she is a busy mom, an author, a wellness coach, and just an amazing woman.
Doing all the things.
Yes. So we are super excited to talk to her about just her journey from being working for a company. She actually worked for Sprint for many years, and then becoming a wellness coach and an author of a book that was recently published called Surrender. Cannot wait to hear about that journey and just how she juggles it all with 4 kids.
Oh gosh. Well, thank you guys so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. And it is sunny in California, I will say, and I'm kind of done with it a little bit, which is probably not what anybody wants to hear right now, but we are still in our triple digits where I live in California. And I'm like, I'm ready for boots in some capacity.
Yeah. I totally get that. But we are having the opposite issue here. It's usually like pretty even. Like we get all the seasons here, and like in the summer, like we have some rainy days, but like it's nice. And this summer has just been
rainy.
Like monsoon season. It's just been rainy the whole summer.
We had rain that's come in just a few hours and caused crazy amounts of flooding. It just poured and poured and poured. So
yeah.
Well, that's where you wish they could. Yeah, well, and that's where you wish they could figure out a way to like. I know this sounds really lame, but like we need the rain. So could we not have some of your rain?
Yeah, we have enough to share.
Just take it from here to transport it somehow.
Yes. They have to figure it out. There's got to be some rain catchment with like underground piping that can go miles and miles and miles. By the time it gets here, it's like already all dried up, but whatever. It's a concept.
Yeah, I like the idea.
Your weather might be really warm, but can you just share one of your favorite things about living in California? Because this is awesome that we have someone from all the way out west.
Here's what I love about living here. Especially where I live, which is just north of San Diego, I mean, I can get to a beach within 40 minutes. I can get to a mountain and go skiing literally in the same day if I wanted to, within 40 minutes.
Wow.
I'm 3 hours from Vegas if I wanted to just let loose and pretend like I have no kids and no life other than just partying. And, it's so central to all these really great outdoor things. And I'm an outdoor person. And so for me, that's what it is. The topography and the weather, as far as you can hike almost any day of the year. You can go to the beach almost any day of the year. You can go to the mountains almost every day of the year, even if there may not be snow, but you can get there and go and enjoy the scenery. So just the nature of it, I think for me, is what I love. Because we lived 10 years. I grew up mostly in Southern California, and then I moved to Texas for 10 years. And I lived in Dallas for 10 years. And we're just back in California now for about 3.5 years. And Texas is amazing. Like, seriously, there's so many amazing things about Texas. But there, more days than not for this California girl, understand, it's either too cold, too wet, too hot, too windy, or too something.
Right.
And so, I enjoy being able to do pretty much whatever I want here at any time of the year. So that sounds really snooty, huh? But I like it.
And you can go to Vegas in 3 hours. You have it all right there.
I know. I can either get on a Southwest flight and be there within 40 minutes, or I can just drive and be there within 3 hours. So
that's so fun.
Yeah,
that was I've been to California once, and it was one of my favorite trips. So my husband and I keep talking about how we need to go back because we've both been there, but not together.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Well, let me know if you do, because super fun.
Yeah. So I would love for our guests to get to know you a little bit. Could you tell us, just give us some background of who you are and how you got into this career that you have now?
Oh, yes. Okay. So I started my career at 16 in sales, right? I started working as a teenager and right away went into sales and kind of fell in love with sales, even though I knew that was not ever, or I never thought that that would be my thing. And then just kind of grew from there, went to school as a young single mom, balancing the school because I had a son very young, and went to school for business and stayed in sales and ended up in this corporate position for a really long time doing sales. And I did love it. Like I really, really loved it. And it just kind of was like, okay, wait a minute. There was a time where I met my husband. We're going to now move from California to Texas. And do I stay here doing sales? And I'm doing great. I love it. Or can I use this opportunity when we're moving to just do something that maybe is calling on my heart versus just my bank account? Because, my sales job, it was amazing and it was great. And but I knew that there was something more that was on my heart. And so when we moved to Texas, I took that opportunity to leave corporate and kind of, forge my own path. However, as most paths are when we are self-employed, it was really crooked and jacked up and had tons of weeds and rocks in it. And I tripped and fell and it was crazy for a long time. And so I remember one day being in a hotel with my husband and he's like, okay, what do you really want to do? Because at that time I had just sold, I had opened and sold a chain of children's art studios. And I'm like, I really want to empower women. I just, I had such an interesting childhood, which is all in my book and even an interesting young adult life with many challenges as every woman and really person goes through. I mean, we all have them. And it could have just been one thing that took me down the wrong path and just not made it. And yet there's somebody there, some mentor, teacher, or lesson or whatever that could take you the other way. I go, I want that person that helps take people the other way and show them that they have what it takes. And so that's kind of how it started. And I started with just retreats at first, where I would just do a retreat here and there for women to hold space for them and to encourage and to maybe give them some ideas on challenging some of their old thought patterns on how they're limited or how they're not enough or whatever that is that they're struggling with. And then it just kind of grew over the last 5-6 years. It just kind of grew to more retreats. And then at the retreats, people were like, well, do you coach? And I'm like, well, I've gone to school for mental health, but that's a whole nother story where mental health was something that I thought I would be really passionate about. And it ended up being more like I learned a lot. And I don't know that that's the path that I wanted to take after many, many years of school. But so I said, well, yeah, I'll go down to coaching. So anyway, so retreats, coaching, and then, a few years ago, a book was on my heart. So that was a really long-winded answer.
No, that was great. Well, and what really stuck out to me too, and I love this, is that your husband really challenged you to think about what you were passionate about. So from the beginning, having that support to really propel you into that is so encouraging to hear.
Yeah, he has been that person all along. Like when I first moved to Texas and it was like, okay, I'm left corporate America. What do I want to do? What am I passionate about? And I was like, well, there's a bunch of kids here. I like kids. I'm passionate about art. I love it. So I opened a children's art studio and I, had really a lot of fun with that for a while. And then it was like, okay, now it grew to a point where it's like, okay, now I get to sell it because we want to move to California. And he just all along was like, is this really what you want to do? Okay, now you're going to change. Is this really what you want to do? And I'm like, I don't know. What do I really want to do? And so anyway, he was definitely the encourager. He was the one that would challenge me. And like, I feel like this isn't what you really want to do. And so, yeah, absolutely. It was critical, especially in those stages of my life, to have that person. And I think we all can have that person, whether it's our spouse or it's someone else or yourself too. Just, you can also conjure that up in your own self too. But definitely if you're in a relationship, having that other person be that person is really good.
Yeah, that's so important. I feel like, in my own life, I work from home and it's nice to have my husband to like bounce ideas off of and just, he doesn't really understand a lot of what I do because I do social media and web design, but he'll be like, oh, like, do you feel good now that you like finished that project? Like, you know, you seem less stressed. It's nice that he does take notice. And I feel like recently he's been trying to just be more, I don't know, take more interest in what I do, because I feel like he talks about his job a lot. So I think that sometimes I'm like, oh, well, this is what I'm doing. So
even if he doesn't know web design, he knows you. So just like you're saying, Shannon, your husband was challenging you to discover what you're passionate about. Your husband knows you, and he maybe doesn't understand all the web stuff, but like he cares how your heart is.
Yeah, it's just funny because I feel like he goes on and on about his job, and I know more about septic systems than any woman should. But I know all of this because my husband's family owns this septic business, and he will talk your ear off about it if you let him. But it's fun to see his business grow too. So like, I think we have to mutually support each other.
I think you nailed it though, in the sense that, you know, my husband doesn't know jack about specifically what I do either. For the most part. I mean, I say that, but for the most part, he doesn't. Like, and he's so funny. He's like, you have so much patience, you know, especially when I was in mental health and I was in the clinical setting, and, you know, I couldn't talk necessarily about specifically what was happening with my clients, but I'd be like, oh, I've got one, you know, client today, you know, suicidal or whatever. And it's just weighing on my heart. And I just want you to know that I'm having a really, you know, hard time processing this. And he'd be like, I can't do this. I can't do this. I can't hear this. I don't, you know, this is too much or whatever. And so, but he knew me, to your point, you know, and so he knew that when I was in the clinical setting, that wasn't feeding my soul. And so that's when it switched from a clinical setting to more of a coaching setting, because, you know, same thing. He's like, he could talk to me in the sense that, okay, I don't know what you're saying or doing or what these sessions are looking like, but I can tell that it's, you know, kind of not your path right now. So yeah, I think that's really important too in a partner, that they don't have to know the nuts and bolts. They just have to know what's feeding you or what's sucking the life out of you, I guess, too, and know how to respond to that.
Yeah.
Right. So you mentioned that a lot of your business has turned into coaching and wellness focus, but this huge new project that's come about is writing a book. What inspired you to do that?
Oh my. So part of it, so my husband, he's a motivational speaker and an author on sales and leadership. And so I've kind of been like, along with my businesses, I've kind of been like his PR person / business development person. When you're self-employed in any capacity, especially if you and your spouse are self-employed, you're going to help each other in the capacities that you can. Right. And so, so I've helped him, and I was kind of his first line editor when he wrote his first books, which has now been, 12, 13 years ago. And then, you know, he'd write it, I'd be first line editor, and then it'd go on to the editor / publisher. And I really enjoyed the process of that. And as I started working with women exclusively about 5 or 6 years ago, I kept seeing these themes that were happening with women, the women that I would work with, the women that would show up at my retreats. And then when I went through my clinical studies, I noticed those same themes that were showing up in women were coming up in me, like just the darker side, I guess you could say, of ourselves, the sides that, you know, recognizing judgment and criticism and feeling like we're not enough, or just, you know, just those darker sides of us that we kind of want to just pack away and pretend like they're not there. And so as the more and more it came up in me and the more I saw it in the women that I worked with, I was like, there's a theme here, and I feel like I need to write this theme out. I need to write the theme out of what I see in myself and others, and then kind of what a path could be for healing, or bringing it to a more powerful place versus a victim-based place. And so that's how it started. But it started like 4 years ago, and I kept putting the manuscript away because of my own, like, no, I'm not a writer, or no, I'm not sad enough. I'm not tragic enough. I'm not enough, you know, so it kept coming up. And so I kept putting the manuscript away. And then finally, a year and a half or so ago, I was like, F this, like, I am so enough. And I'm not writing this book so that it could be a bestseller necessarily, although that'd be an amazing blessing. I'm welcoming that abundance. But really, I'm writing this book because it's on my heart, and because it's what I see in my clients, and because I know I've done a lot of work with clients that's helped them. And, you know, this may help, even if it's one person, then that was the purpose of this book. And so, so I forged through and, and did it.
Good for you. That is so cool.
Thanks.
Speaking of authors, I teach second grade, and we read a book about the big bad wolf, and one of my students was saying, oh, well, I wonder if there's another book that's along this storyline. I said, you could write it. And he goes, I'm not an author. I'm going to work at McDonald's. And I said, you could be both. And actually, this other girl that was listening went home that night and wrote the next part of the book, and it was awesome.
Oh, that just gave me chills.
It was amazing. And even this little 8-year-old made me think, like, I could do that. Like, she was just so excited. But anyway.
I love that. And I know I'm going to side rail for a minute, but thank you for being a teacher for these bright young minds who maybe at home are not told they could be an author. And that's no judgment there, I swear, but it just happens. And so it's so nice to, that you could be there to say, you could be though, and you're not even downplaying his McDonald's dream either. You're like, you can do both. Which I love that so much anyway. So
That's awesome. And I think at that age, kids have no idea of like what jobs, like, what a good paying job is, or, and I love that at that age, they have no judgment. Like for them, working at McDonald's is awesome.
I love that. Yeah, I love that. My girls are always, my 2 little ones are always drawing pictures and stuff of what they want to be. And one of them's like, my 8-year-old is like, I'm going to be an author and a teacher and a vet. Like she's got this whole list of everything. I'm like, go for it, baby girl. Cause cause it's all going to unfold the way it's supposed to unfold anyway. So
yeah, that's awesome. So tell us a little bit more about the book. The theme, obviously, it's called Surrender. You said that the theme is sort of working through those darker parts of ourselves. And I think you're right. Everyone has those darker places that they go to when things aren't so great. And we talk about the Enneagram on here sometimes because we've both like taken the quiz, and some of our guests have been more passionate about it than others. A couple of them have been like, oh my gosh, yes. And like, I read about mine all the time. But the thing I like about that is that it tells you like, these are the traits you have at your best. And these are the things you might pull from when you are at your worst. Because I think that it gives you you can learn more about yourself when you know how you react to things. And, although these might be your good traits, you also have to be able to recognize your not as good traits or characteristics. So tell us a little bit about the book.
Yeah. So first of all, you're so right. Like we're humans, and an inherent human thing is we're going to have dark sides. I mean, it's just, I hate to say it, but it's just built into the DNA. And we even so much that we look and crave for dark things. We look and crave for gossip. We look and crave for, believe it or not, the bad news. It's just the way we're designed. And this starts way, way back in I'm not going to get too philosophical, but like caveman days, where we had to look for danger, right, to stay alive. And so it's literally built in our DNA, but the danger today shows up as the news or terrorism or racism or whatever. And so anyway, so to your point, like we all have it. And some maybe are able to, balance is not my favorite word because I don't know that there's ever really balance in life, but let's just use it for now. Like we look to balance out those dark sides with more light sides so that we are more joyful than not. That's ideally. And some people, that's a harder thing to do. So my book really, it's really designed for someone who is wanting to remove those limiting beliefs or limiting stories, wanting to embrace them though, so that they can move through them. Because what you don't want to do too is take anything that's quote unquote negative about ourselves and deny it or shove it away or pretend it's not there, because it only grows bigger. And so this is more like, I'm going to embrace this dark side of me so that I can then work through it and come out to the lighter side of me, and be more in the light than the dark. Because here's the other thing. You're never going to get rid of dark. Like you're never going to not have a sad day. You're never going to not have anxious thoughts. You're never not going to have stress either. I do a lot of these stress reduction workshops. And I always have to be like, okay, so you're here for stress reduction, but I'm here to pop the little bit of the bubble to say, you're never going to get rid of stress. And by the way, stress can kind of be good. It's just, it's your perception. And then it's how you're managing the negative symptoms of it that are happening in your life. So anyway, so the book is really just to help you embrace these darker sides, to help you remove the limiting beliefs and stories that you've created in your mind about yourself, and then to work through them so that you could be more on the light side than in the dark side. So, and really the whole theme of the book obviously is to surrender to the process, but also to surrender to love, which ultimately my belief is that all any of us ever really, really want is to be loved, like genuinely to be loved, which also includes acceptance and, all the other good stuff that goes with it. And so really it's a journey to take you from the dark side into love. So
that's awesome.
I already feel encouraged, and I haven't even read your book, so I can't wait to read more.
Yay.
So I'm just guessing that there was some obstacle that you faced along this whole journey, whether it be internally with the content of the book or the actual process of writing a book. Was there any huge obstacle that you had to overcome in this whole process?
The two big ones. The first one was just writing it, right? Just sitting down and saying, I'm going to do this, and carving out the time for it, as you guys know, being moms, and just making that happen like that. And then sticking to it, right? And saying, I am going to make this happen. And then the internal obstacle would be, in the book, I share some really vulnerable, it's an incredibly vulnerable book on me. I have some client stories in there, of course, with their permission and no names, but there's a lot of me in it. And whenever you're writing about, like, let's say one of you guys had a struggle, in there I talk about, where a couple of times, there was like attempted rape and just some really deep, vulnerable stuff. But that story always involves some other person. All of them do. And the fear being, I'm not trying to take anyone down in sharing my story. And my truth might look different from someone else's truth, right? Like my parents' truth might look different from my truth. Other people that have, been affected in these stories might look different. And so I had to really be careful about how I shared my vulnerability and my stories without hurting someone else, and without, being attackful or vengeful in any way. So I spent a lot of time in prayer and meditation, help the words come out that are my truth and my story without it being hurtful, attackful, or making it feel like it's a bitter, ugly thing. And so, and I used an editor in the process, and an incredibly beautiful editor that really helped that too. Cause I wanted to be like, here's the story. Here's what happened that shaped this dark side of me. How can we write this in a way that it's not like, hurtful or mean? And so it ended up being a beautiful process. And I feel like the truth is there and without, taking anybody else down. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's really interesting. Like I never would have even thought of that part of it. But yeah, we all have stories that, just you don't think about the fact that they affect other people.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So,
because I think of it too, like, let's say one of my kids wrote a book. I'm like, oh my God, are they going to write about that time that I lost my ever living mind? And like, you know what I mean? Like, oh my gosh, are they going to write about that time where I screamed like a freaking banshee? Like I think that's what would go in my head. It's like, I don't want to write this book so that someone else gets hurt. That's not like, that's the exact opposite of what the intent of this book is. Yeah. And so I just had to be I wanted to be truthful. I wanted to share my truth, but I also didn't want to share it in a way that would hurt someone else.
Yeah. That's awesome. So how did you juggle like the physical, like writing part of this book along with being a mom and a grandma? So you have a 2-month-old little grandbaby.
I do. Oh my gosh, I do. She's so perfect. I mean, yeah. So I got to be very honest. My writing style ended up being very like, okay, I tried I'm going to do it at home. I'm going to get up at 4:30 in the morning before anybody else gets up, and I'm going to write. And then I'm, when it's 6:00 and I have to wake the rest of the house up, that,
God bless for people that do that.
Yeah. And I did it for a minute, but here's what happened. I actually enjoyed eventually getting up at 4:30. I do not anymore. But for a minute, I like, okay, this is really lovely. Like no one else is up. This is so quiet. Oh my gosh. But what I found is I couldn't shut it off in time. Like when you do get right into the like heart of it, you're writing, and you look and you're like, oh, it's 5:59. Okay. And then you're like, oh, it's 6:01. I could do 5 more minutes. And then it jacks your whole day up. Because if you don't get I'm sure you guys know, if you don't get the kids up on time, you're then yelling the whole time, like, get your shoes, get this. Oh my gosh, did you eat breakfast? And I mean, it becomes this cluster F. And I'm like, no. So that had to go away. And so it went away. And what ended up happening is I did 2, what I call writing trips. And my husband was also in the process of writing his 5th book. And so what we did is we grabbed our laptops, we took our RV. My aunt, who's kind of like also a mom to me, came and stayed the weekend with my kids. We got in the RV, we went and parked the RV literally like 30 minutes from the house, but hey. And so that way we could still be available, whatever. Because we both travel a lot. And so we didn't want it to make it too much of another travel or away from the kids, but we parked the RV for 2 days. And when I say we didn't do anything but write, we didn't do anything but write. And it was 2 trips like that so it ended up being 4 days of like 16-hour writing days. Wow. And it was awesome because I had no guilt about my kids are waiting for dinner. My kids are doing this. I got to do this. I literally would write. We'd eat something quick, write. We'd eat something, write. Grab the wine, keep writing. I think the best writing happened when I was, drinking wine. And then you just woke up and did it the next day. So that ended up being the best process for me. I'm not saying that's the best process for everyone, but that was like such like a game changer.
That's awesome.
What I'm hearing you say is that I need to get an RV with my husband and find a reason to go away for the weekend.
That is actually our favorite thing to do. Like I said, we both travel a lot. But when we take our like just him and I trips that have nothing to do with work, we love getting in the RV. It's like, I don't know. It's a disconnect, right? From reality. Because in a hotel, you're still like, there's Wi-Fi and there's this and there's TV. And although we do, because my husband is a football fanatic, we do have TV and freaking direct TV in the RV, but it's less.
My kind of RV.
Yeah. Well, no, trust me. I like actually camping, like nature camping. And my husband's like, so I need an air conditioner and I need the direct TV and a refrigerator that has like food. No, we're getting an RV. I'm like, okay. But I love it. I mean, I love it.
I would be more for the RV and the air conditioning. I could go without TV.
We should do that for like podcast. Let's get away for the weekend.
Do some research, see what it's like.
Oh my gosh. That sounds amazing.
We'll add that to our list along with our spa day. We're going to do another research day at the spa.
Those are the best research days. I think you get the most accomplished.
Yes. Yeah. So we'll add it to our list. So I would love to learn a little bit more about the retreats that you offer. You mentioned that you love nature and you love getting outdoors. So what is one of your retreats like?
So that is my most favorite thing I do. I get to travel all around the world, really, and hold space for women. And honestly, the most beautiful thing, the wine is amazing, the locations are amazing, the workshops I do, the most beautiful thing to me genuinely is that these women who are in totally different stages of life, because I've got, mid-20s and I've had as young as, 80s. I mean, they're just totally different seasons. Some of them have kids, some of them don't have kids, some of them have empty nesters, some of them work, some of them don't work. I mean, literally every season. And they come together and the sisterhood that's created by the end of the retreat, like it's almost like, I have chills talking about it. It's almost like, how is this possible that this happens in such a short time? Because it's really only 3 nights, most of them. My international ones are 5 nights, but even still. So the sisterhood that's created, you guys, is by far the most magical thing ever that happens at the retreats. But the logistical side of it is we get to go to really cool places. Some of my favorite places are Costa Rica, and believe it or not, Florida. There's my very, very favorite place in the whole wide world, just personally, that I like to go to in Florida, that I host a retreat probably about 2 times a year. And so some of them are beachy, some of them are mountains, some of them, the one I just completed last weekend, we did here in the one closest to my house that I ever do. It's in wine country, so we're literally staying on a vineyard.
Oh, that's so neat.
Yeah. So the locations are amazing. And then we do workshops, we have yoga, we do a lot of mindfulness activities just to kind of reconnect to the present, reconnect to our body. And we drink a lot of wine. There is that. or whatever the choice of beverage is. Mine is currently shifting to tequila, so there's that. But
a good getaway.
Yes. Yeah. And then we have a chef on site who cooks the most amazing meals. So the women get to come, and my goal is that me and my team serve them, because how often, ladies, do you get served where you don't have to cook and you don't have to clean and you don't have to do laundry and you don't have to wipe somebody's ass? Like, it literally is like I'm being served. And so that's my goal, is to serve women on these retreats, to connect women on these retreats, not just to themselves, but to other women who, because that's how we communicate. I mean, women communicate with other women. I mean, yes, we communicate with men, of course, but like really we get filled up at our soul level when we communicate and commune with other women. And so it's pretty powerful.
Wow.
That's awesome.
I just love hearing your heart for helping people. And I just know our listeners are going to feel so inspired by hearing the way that you care for people and just are helping others be motivated and inspired in their own life.
And I feel like just the fact too, sometimes it's like you need permission from someone else, from another mom, to be like, you know what, it's okay. Like, go take a day for yourself.
Oh, please. My biggest thing, especially for women, is that it's really, really, really difficult for us to offer what we don't offer ourselves first. It's kind of like a shadow of it. And I've gotten kickback on this. So an example is, believe it or not, ladies, it's really hard for us to fully love our spouses and our kids if we don't love ourselves first. Yes, you love them, of course, but it's not this overflowing, full, no strings attached, you have to have that for yourself first, because that's when it overflows to such a capacity that it's genuinely felt and vibrating in everything that you do. Otherwise, we're cranky more often than not, or more often than we'd like. We're short-tempered. We're just to do. Right. We're just like, it's like this kind of like, yes, I love you, but could you get your damn shoes on? Or yes, I love you, but could you pick that up? You know what I'm saying? Like, it has to start with us first, because then all those other things are like, meh, okay, yeah.
That is so true.
I think of that analogy with like a mom's cup being full and trying to pour out into other people's cups. Eventually your cup will be empty. But if you let your cup be filled by other women and being encouraged to time with your spouse, it's going to just overflow.
Yeah.
And so taking care of yourself, you're going to take care of other people too.
And I think it can be even in just little things. Like my husband and I have really been trying to be intentional over the past couple of weeks. We had a huge blow up, and that doesn't happen a lot, but usually it's when like, okay, all of a sudden life got busy and like we haven't been intentional about like connecting or letting each other know like our needs. Like when things change, when times are busy, sometimes like I need more help, or he needs me to take notice of things. And, it's just been great over the past couple weeks. Like, he has been helping more with our kids. And last night, we went out, but my mom offered to watch them and said we had to bring them to her. Usually she comes here, but I was like, this is actually great because we can take them to her like a little bit early. And I was like, would you mind going, like taking them to my mom's? Cause it's like a 20-minute drive. So till it's like, there and back. I was like, that gives me like an hour to myself.
Oh, genius.
Yeah. So he offered to to go drive him to my mom's, like to my parents' house. Yeah. And I went and got a pedicure. And
I was when you did. I saw her picture. I'm like, Rachel, what happened? Like, where's your girl?
Yes, because we weren't meeting up with friends for dinner until about 7 p.m., but I had texted my mom at like 4 and was like, can I bring the girls over soon? And then my husband ended up getting home from work a little earlier. So he was so sweet and was like, yeah, I don't mind driving them. I think he's just noticed that like, look, like, I think what you said is right. Like, we are nicer when we are able to like ourselves, when we feel good about how we look and how we feel. And sometimes that might mean like a little bit of pampering, or sometimes like my mom has had like 2 pedicures in her whole life. She just doesn't, that's not her thing. But she loves having time to herself to just like read a book. And so whatever it is, like, I think you just need to recognize like what you need, communicate it to your partner and let them know, like, our whole family is going to be in a better mood if like I can have XYZ and vice versa. I think you have to ask your husband, like,
true.
What are your husband's needs? Because my husband doesn't have a whole lot of needs. It's just one thing.
That's pretty much almost all men in general.
Yeah.
They figured it out. So,
but I'm like, you do realize that if you do all these other things for me, maybe that one thing will happen for you more often.
Yes. Oh my gosh, you nailed it. We just, on my podcast, we just interviewed a therapist who works primarily with couples. And that was like the main topic was, the one thing that men always complain about or would, prefer to have more of. And it's always like, well, the season of life is saying, do the dishes more. The season of life is saying, maybe you bathe the kids tonight. And maybe, you know what I mean? Anyway, so yeah. Totally.
So we'll have to have people listen to yours. And I actually did want to ask, where can people find your podcast? Because it sounds like you have a lot of interesting guests and topics that are probably more wellness related. But yeah, we love to shout out our guests and where people can find them at.
Yeah, so the podcast is called the Happy Hour Podcast, but there's also a lot of Happy Hour podcasts. So if you just typed in my name into like iTunes or wherever you search for it, then it comes up. Then it comes up there. Okay. But yeah, for sure.
We'll be sure to help people find you.
Yeah, now I want to listen to it.
Yes.
Yeah, no, thank you. I have to say though, going back to what you were saying with what men want, a perfect way to be like, so honey, I know what you want, but there's this really great retreat. I have a feeling if I went on this retreat, you get more of what you want. Right?
Yeah. And so we know in your retreats that you have all these women together, and a big goal of yours is just to help these women move away from negative beliefs and really live this joyful, abundant life. And that's what you're sharing about in your book. Do you have any inspirational story or a story of one of the women that's really stuck with you that you would like to share?
Oh, that's a good one. It's so funny because as soon as you say that, like literally like faces just popped into my head and I'm like, oh, her, oh, wait, her, oh, wait, her. I don't know that I could share just one, but I know that here's what I do know. I have such a high percentage of return guests. So, I mean, literally like 30 to 40%, which is a really high percentage of return. Like in each of my retreats, I have at least 2 to 3 women who've been on a retreat already. And so, yeah, which I love it so much because literally I have a guest who comes and then, they were at my retreat 5 years ago. And I even joke around like, doesn't look the same, does it? Because I'm hoping that I'm growing too, and I'm developing and I'm bringing in more content and more knowledge and experience and inspiration. And so I don't know that I have just one person, to be honest, that comes up in my head. That literally tons of beautiful faces just popped up in my head. But it to me, it's the biggest blessing.
Yeah.
It's, 1, to be able to do it, but 2, to be able to continue to see them. And then we have anybody who's gone on a retreat. We have that Facebook group. It's just like our alumni group. And so we keep in contact that way too and continue to uplift each other and share stories and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. So it's really, really cool to just kind of see that too. So I think
I guess that's a good problem that there wasn't just one, that you're thinking of like tons of women that you've impacted. And I'm sure they've impacted your life as well.
Oh, they have. I probably get more out of the retreats than any one woman who attends, genuinely. It fills me up and I learn and I'm challenged like tons. So yeah, totally.
Awesome. So what is it like managing your team and coordinating a successful retreat? Like on the back end, like what does it take to pull off one of these retreats, especially when, like you said, there's one that might be like closer to where you live, but when you're taking women on a trip, what goes into that? Is it a lot of like planning ahead of time? Is it like, does your team do a lot of the work? Or if you're staying at a resort or somewhere, like, do they do a lot of the work? Like, how do you
That's great questions. So I don't really do resorts anymore. I used to do them, but I really like the intimacy of renting big homes. So I typically will rent big homes. And so that way it's literally like we're having a slumber party. So I rent big homes and there's options for people to have a private room if they want. But a lot of these homes were kind of like sharing rooms. And so, that's that part. And then I have my chef who comes I have a couple chefs I work with, one that comes out of Texas and one that comes out of Florida. And then I always have at least 1 or 2, what I would call just, staff helpers. They don't have a title, but they like will help in the kitchen or they'll help with setup and tear down. And so we kind of like, it's just like a thing. We have it. I have these cases. I try, if it's local, I have tons of cases. If not, it's like I have 2 big suitcases that I check and it has all my goodies in it and stuff that I need for the retreat. But we kind of just have a system. We get there usually the day before. We get everything set up for everybody to arrive. Because I want this to be experience, like literally the moment they open the door, it's just the serving experience of fun and just, amazing peace and joy and all the goodies that they are looking for. And so we set up the day before, and then we just work together cohesively throughout the retreat. And then at the end, it's just this mad dash to get everything packed up and cleaned up because, I've rented a place and they're trying to get it ready for the next people. So that's kind of like an overview of how it works. But yeah, I communicate with my team via phone and email before we all get together. And then, we just kind of make it happen. Right. But I'm really blessed that way though, because I've been doing it for almost 6 years now. I will tell you, my retreat today looks nothing like it did 6 years ago. Like 6 years ago, I joke around because I still have women who come from 6 years ago. And I'm like, man, that was like, I didn't know what the heck I was doing. Like, it's so funny, but but even in my corporate days, like I would host big events and big retreat types things in a corporate environment. So I kind of had a little bit of that going on, but still it's come a long way. So that was like a big overview. Did that answer any of your question?
Yeah, that totally does. Like I didn't really know what was involved or like how many people were on your team. Yeah. And that's just so cool. I feel like, now I want to sign up and go on a retreat.
No, when's your next one? Where are you going?
So New York is next month, or are we in? No, yeah. So we're still in September. So New York is October, and that one's full. And Costa Rica is November, and that one I think has like 2 spots left.
Ooh, we are 2 people.
Oh yeah, no, really. I think it does. It has 2 spots left, and then I take a break I don't do anything in December typically, and then I start again next year with I think Florida. I off the top of my head, I can't remember all of them. Wow. Yeah, so
that's so cool.
Yeah, and then I'm trying to plan out one for Italy, but that probably won't be until 2020 or 2021 because it's a little bit more. I haven't done Italy yet, so anytime I'm going to a new place, I'm like, it's gonna. Yeah.
It would take me a while to organize an Italy trip too,
right?
Yeah, coordinate it for all the people. Yeah, that is so cool. So a lot of it is just planning and being good at that end of things, which is so cool. I had a question and it just escaped me. Oh, I was going to ask, so for your retreats, do a lot of your guests, they just are doing it on a whim, they're just one person? Or do you have people that mom and daughter or 2 friends that sign up together? What do you see more often?
Literally all of the above. I have just to give you an example, this last retreat I just did, I had 2 mom and daughter that came. There was 21 women. 4 were mom and daughter. I had one that I had a cancellation and literally somebody registered last minute on a whim. So there was that. I had one group of friends, and then everyone else came on their own, just signed up on their own and came. And so it's kind of it's this real, like I was saying before, it's literally this eclectic group of women from all over. I had women from Canada, women from Tennessee, women from Ohio. I'm trying to remember all the places, Jersey, literally it's all from all over and all over different seasons. And they come by themselves, they come with a friend, they come with a parent. But everybody leaves connected, which is so super cool.
That's really cool. And I love that with social media, like you said, people can stay connected.
Yes.
And, at this point, too, people can find each other on social media. But the fact that you facilitate that after is so nice. Cool. So I cannot wait to ask you some more questions about your business and also your family. But we're going to take a quick break and then we'll be right back. Hey Thrivers, if you've been listening and you would love to join the Inspire Business community or a mastermind group like you've heard us talking about tonight, I have a special coupon code just for you. If you use code THRIVE20, that's THRIVE20, you can save 20% off of any workshops or upcoming events, or you can use that towards a mastermind membership and save $100 off your membership for the year. So this is an awesome chance for you to get involved, and I would love to see you at an upcoming event. Again, it's Thrive 20, and I hope to see you soon. So we are talking today with Shannon Jamail about her book, about wellness coaching, about wellness retreats, and just empowering women. So I've had so much fun already. What about you?
I'm like ready to sign up for Costa Rica.
I know.
I love this idea. Well, and just like Rachel and I have did an episode about self-care, and we already mentioned our husbands being so supportive of us. So how special that you give women an opportunity like that, just to take a step away from their daily grind and fill themselves and connect with other women. I so agree, Shannon, that there's something you get from being around other women that's so life-giving, that we don't usually make time for in our busy lives. So I love it.
Yeah, thanks. I love it too. It literally is like it is seriously my passion.
That's awesome. So you're obviously a very busy working mom, and you mentioned that your husband travels and he's written lots of books, a business owner, kids. How do you juggle that all?
So I don't. I really, here's the thing. Like I think I might have mentioned earlier, balance is not my favorite word, because when we tell ourselves we have to be in balance, then that's when we're like trying to control, and it becomes more like you feel this whole out of balance even more, right? Because there's times, as you guys know, that you have the newborn stage and like, holy crap, with no sleep, what's happening? Yeah. And then there's times where work is a little busier, and then there's there's just seasons to me. And I, like anybody else, there's times where one thing is going to get more attention than the other. Never at the sacrifice of my family, but definitely there's going to be times where one's going to get more attention than the other, just because it is what that season calls for. And so I just do my best to show up as best as I can. And I give myself grace for everything else. And it wasn't always that way. I used to really kill myself to get everything done. Everything had a hard deadline to it. And I was just always so kind of pissed, if I'm being honest, because I was operating on this to-do list of just had to get, manicness. And now I just literally, I do have a really good planning schedule. So every Sunday I have a calendar that literally I plan out each day of the week. But I also offer myself grace that if that doesn't happen, I'm not a brain surgeon. Not that I'm discounting what I do, because I love what I do, but no one genuinely is going to die if I don't get something turned in by the way that I said has to be turned in, or I don't post something on the timeline that I said has to be posted, or I didn't, you know what I mean? So I just offer myself grace. So I schedule grace. I mean, that literally is my motto.
Now, I know we have some women listening that are military wives, or husbands do shift work, or unreliable, different kind of schedules where you don't know when they'll be home. And so I was just talking to a friend last night about that same thing. And I was telling her, you make a plan. If your husband's busy, here's what you're going to try to do. And then if it doesn't happen, it's okay. And you just regroup, because I think we put so much pressure on ourselves, especially when your husband may not be home as regularly as you would like. Yeah. But you need to have grace with yourself.
I like what you said so much about how, as somebody that, I work for myself, I totally get it when you're like, this is an expectation I have for myself. I am literally stressing myself out. Because,
totally.
For me, most of my clients, I'm really good at staying on top of things, because I like to be on top of things. I'm not much of a procrastinator. With some things like my laundry, yes, I procrastinate. But when it comes to projects and stuff,
really
I'm usually pretty quick. I pride myself in having a pretty good turnaround. I think that's something that my clients have come to expect, but it's because that's just what I do. And so there are times that Kyle will be like, why are you so stressed out? And I'm like, well, I didn't get this done. And I wanted to get it done today. And he's like, well, did they email you about it? Are they on your case about it or something? Did you not get it to them on time? And I'm like, no, I just wanted to have it done today, because I already am thinking about what I could be working on next week. And now this is going to push my whole schedule behind. And it is tough too, depending on what stage you're in. I only have a babysitter 2 days, and my kids are little. I don't even have that school time yet. Preschool does not count. I'm really just coming home and going back.
Yes.
But I love what you said about just give yourself grace. And sometimes I feel maybe I do need to step back and be okay, this is a deadline or like an expectation that I gave myself. So like if you're a work at home mom, if you're doing your own business, if you're doing your own thing, whether it's multi-level marketing or, you are doing freelance work, like give yourself some grace.
Yeah. Yeah. It all comes down to the expectations that we put on everything, like even the expectation of laundry. Like, I'm not trying to say we all should turn our underwear inside out and keep going, but it's a self-imposed expectation that we're doing to ourselves.
Yeah.
And it's the stress that we tie to that expectation. So it's okay to have an expectation, right? I'd like to get laundry done today. But we have to also say, I showed up in my best self today and laundry didn't get done, and that's okay, right? Like, it's okay. And I think it all goes up to like just showing up as your best self, having the right, intention and somewhat of a schedule, whatever that looks like for everybody else, but then also knowing that if it didn't happen, it's okay. Mm-hmm. That even goes to me if you work in corporate. I did corporate for many years, and I know there's harder lines and harder deadlines and stuff too, but I genuinely feel, and here's the woo-woo, that people, bosses, companies can sense when you're showing up as your best self and that maybe something didn't get done, but the energy was right and everything else about it was right. So yeah, you're going to need extra time for whatever that is. I feel like people know that versus someone who's just like, I don't really care. I'm just here to just collect a paycheck. Like, that's a whole different energy space, and people know that too. So my point is, like, always just show up as your best self, whatever that looks like, and offer grace for everything else. Like, that to me is like, everything else, it's just stuff anyway. Like, literally, it's just, I'm looking around my messy ass office because I caught my kitchen on fire, by the way, 2 weeks ago. And so I have zero kitchen. Like, it's studs now because like,
really caught on fire.
No, like literally, yeah. Like they removed all the furniture from the house and had to trash it because of the smoke. Like, literally 2 weeks ago. So, but it reminds me of like, it's just stuff. Like, I have no furniture downstairs. We're living upstairs. We were in our RV until a few days ago. Now we're back in the house, and my laundry room is my kitchen with a tiny little microwave now and a tiny little fridge. And so you can have, you can have coffee in some underwear. I mean, it's like right there in the same space.
Everything you need.
Yeah, but it reminded, this whole process just double reminded me, like, it's just stuff anyway. Like, it's just stuff. Everything is just stuff. And you just do your best,
Mm-hmm. And obviously it can be hard to remember that when you're trying to take care of your children and
totally
your business. And you talked a little bit about your children. I'm sure that they have passions that they're starting to explore, or you have some kids that are a little bit older. How do you encourage them to pursue their passions, similar to the way that you would encourage your clients?
So we have not very many rules in our house as far as like, what you can and cannot say or do. But the one thing that we're really big sticklers on is not saying the word can't. And it's just a big deal for me, especially. It doesn't mean that I'm being unrealistic in the sense of like, you're trying to do a slam dunk and you're like, I can't do it. Okay, you can't do it. That's fine. That's the truth. But instead of saying can't, because that's what our mind and body and cells hear, say, I'm working to learn to do a slam dunk, or I'd like to do a slam dunk and I'm working towards it. Whatever. Like, we're just not going to use the word can. And it just came up for us recently because we live on a lake. And so my girls are learning how to water ski, which is not my thing, by the way, at all. But my husband loves it. The girls are learning. And my 8-year-old was on the training one. And she just kept saying, I can't. And I'm like, okay, we're coming out of the water then, because can't is not an option. You're learning how. So let's change the language. Literally, I'm having this conversation in the water. My husband's probably rolling his eyes. And I'm like, how about you say, I'm getting better at water skiing? That's not a lie, like that's because some people have a hard time with these affirmation type things, right? Because it's like, but it's not true. Okay, well, I'm getting better at is the truth because you're trying, right? Anytime you're trying something, you're getting better at it. If nothing else, you're learning what's not right, And so I'm like, let's just say I'm trying or I'm learning how to water ski. Don't say you can't, honey. Anyway, so the next thing you know, she popped up and she did it and it's all good. So that's my biggest thing, I think, to encourage my girls or my son too, who now has his family and his daughter, is let's just not use that word, because then it just opens up possibilities in our bodies, literally our bodies and in our minds, of what can happen when we get rid of that word.
That's awesome.
We talk about that at my school too, growth mindset and just changing the way that you see things. And we have these posters on our wall, and I don't know if my students read it, but I'll look at it and think, how much am I saying that in my own language? And that's limiting.
Yeah. But water skiing is hard.
It is hard.
Oh my gosh. It is so hard. I'm not denying that.
I never do it.
Hey. That's not true.
Right now, because we don't have a lake or water skis. But if we did, Rachel.
Yes, I would still like to learn. But in my previous attempts, I was able to I could do it in a squatting position, but I was never able to really get up. You kind of start.
Yeah.
And then I could just never do it. And I think part of it is because I'm too scared of the water. That it's really not my thing.
So, but there, you just said it. Instead of, to me, I'm just using this as an example. Let's say my girls did it for a long time, and that just instead of them saying I can't do it, it's more I don't like to do this. And that's more empowering than I can't, because to learn to water ski, you have to go through that BS, right? You do and sometimes that's not your jam, because it's not my jam. I tried it and I literally got an enema because it was my legs went two different directions. That was disgusting.
It was terrible. No, thank you.
Yeah. And I'm okay, water skiing, not my jam. It's not that I can't do it. It's just not my jam. And so that's more what I would like to see everybody feel like. It's instead of saying I can't cook, it's more cooking's not my jam. You could cook if you took the time. Maybe for some people it takes longer than others, and that's okay. But you could cook if you studied how ingredients work and how the oil works and how all this, whatever. It's just not your jam, So anyway.
That's what I'm going to tell my husband.
That's us. We just don't want to.
Cooking is not our jam.
Perfect.
That's okay. We love Chick-fil-A.
Yes.
Even better.
Chick-fil-A is our jam.
Yes.
So what would you want a mom listening today to just take away from this episode? If there was one thing that you could just say, remember this above all else.
Love yourself first. Just that simple. Love yourself first. There's an exercise that I like to do with women and the retreat, and just something really simple they could do is literally take a moment, go in the bathroom, shut the bathroom door, because we all can do that at some point, even if we only have 20 seconds to do it. Mm-hmm. Stand in front of the mirror and put your hand over your heart and look at yourself and say, I love you. And just stand there. And more than likely you'll cry, because I still do. If you genuinely are doing it and not doing it as ha ha ha, it's a joke, I'm going to, but literally just stand there, look at yourself in the mirror, put one hand over your heart and just say, I love you to yourself. Do that every day if possible. Maybe you can't get to the mirror, but maybe you just put your hand over your heart and just say, I love you to yourself. Close your eyes and say it. Because that's how you're going to fill yourself up and tell yourself, first of all, it's okay to be loved, because sometimes we feel like we're not deserving. We didn't do enough today. We weren't a good enough mom. We weren't a good enough wife. We weren't a good enough whatever. But that energy will kind of spill out, and you don't want that, right? So just love yourself first. And if you could do that simple exercise every day, or again, give yourself grace. If it doesn't happen every day, fine. When you remember, put your hand over your heart and I love you.
Oh, I love that.
That's so good.
Well, now we have some homework.
We do.
Go try that.
Water skiing and taking a moment to love ourselves.
We'll share our water skiing.
I want video.
Yes. So that actually, speaking of Instagram, I wanted to ask, where can people find you? Where can they get more information about your business, your retreats, you?
Yeah, so you can go to mindbodycomplete.com, and my website has all my links to everything, but you also on Instagram, it's mindbodycomplete, which is where I spend probably the most social media time, although it's all connected. I'm not the greatest at social media, but it's connected from Facebook or from Instagram to Facebook, from Facebook to I don't know where, Twitter, but...
Yeah,
the internet does it all.
Well, you can also find Shannon if you are connected to us. Yes. Obviously, we are big fans. Mm-hmm. So you can find her in our list of followers or people that we're following. So
Yes.
Shannon, we just want to say thank you so much for spending your morning with us, for sharing your story, your business, your heart. It has been just so encouraging.
Thank you guys. Thank you guys so much. This was so much fun. We have to do a part 2, but you guys come on my show.
Oh, we would love that. That probably needs to be in person, right?
Yeah. No. I'm thinking you guys need to get on an airplane.
Oh my gosh. I would love Be back, guys. See ya. Podcast.
You just need 2 days, just 2-day reset. Come spend time with me on the lake. I don't have a kitchen, but Chick-fil-A is right around the
corner. Well, thank you again so much. It was such an honor to be able to speak to you. And we just wish you the best with your upcoming retreats and your book. We definitely look forward to reading that soon.
Awesome. Thank you, ladies, so much.
Thank you. And listeners, thank you for joining us and learning about Shannon. And we just want to share with you guys, if no one's told you yet today, that you are doing amazing.
Thank you so much for listening today. You are a part of a growing community of moms, business owners, and women who are here to encourage and inspire. You can connect with Rachel at Rachel Klein Creative on Instagram or rachelkleincreative.com. To keep up with Christine and her latest events, follow her business journey on Instagram at Bellenberry Co. And if you want to be first to know about upcoming guests and giveaways, sign up for the Thrive Podcast email list today. Simply visit rachelkleincreative.com/The Thrive Podcast or follow at The Thrive Podcast on Instagram. If you've enjoyed listening this week or you've already added our show to your favorites playlist, we'd love for you to write us a review on iTunes. Your support and positive feedback allows us to keep encouraging moms and business owners each week.